Good evening, everybody. No idea really what David was saying there. I assume it was complimentary anyway. Um, what I'm going to talk to you about today is culminates really with an introduction to the Clover Cluster product. But I'm going to run through a few things in the introduction for those of you who might not know all the aspects of Clover. So when I first saw Clover, I kind of felt that the right thing to describe it was to say that Clover dominates your data, and it's very well suited to processing huge volumes of data, so very large batches of large quantities of data, but it's equally adept at processing a large number of very small ad hoc jobs. So it's a very flexible tool for the largest and for the smallest types of applications. As I'm going to show you in a moment, the general principle is obviously that it reads data in from one or more sources of pretty well any type. You can then transform those data sources in ways that I'm going to show you in a moment, and then ultimately you write that out, obviously. So the common approach, I think, for many companies is still to use programming techniques or to use DBAs to produce complex scripts, very time-consuming, error-prone, hard to maintain. And CloverETL obviously offers a very rapid setup, so the ability to build these graphs in a way that really reduces the risk and the cost. They run extremely fast, and as I'm going to show you today, they're very, very scalable. Totally platform independent, so it can run on PCs, Macs, Linux, Unix, AS400. It's GUI driven, as I'm going to show you in a moment, and it's definitely fair to say that it offers by quite a wide margin the best price performance in the industry today. So particularly now with the introduction of the Clover Cluster product, Clover really does have a very nice continuous product line, starting at with the desktop designer, allowing you to run these graphs, build and run these graphs on my laptop, as I'm going to show you later, through to a server product for more advanced jobs and processing, right the way up to a cluster version, which, as we'll see, lets you basically scale in many cases in a near linear fashion. So what I'm going to do now is just to spend 5 minutes quickly running through some of the important points of the product. And I'm just going to bring up here a graph which I think illustrates quite nicely the general principles of Clover. So what we have on the right-hand side here is a set of components that we can then drag into our graph. We effectively build a flow by connecting these components together, and then we execute. Now there's quite a lot in between, which I'm going to talk about. So the readers, we have a wider range of readers, which will let us read from all sorts of different systems, not just databases, but pretty well any flat file you can throw at it, LDAP systems, data, DBF files, spreadsheets, so from the Oracle right the way down to even SQLite or a simple delimited file. And then the writers do the same in reverse, obviously. And I think an important point is that the Clover approach is not to have 500 different components, so you need to take a training course to understand which component you should use for which job, but to use fewer components which are highly configurable through the interface. So it's much easier to get to grips with. So that's reading and writing. Then there are a range of transformers. So for instance, this reformat here, this allows us to map fields from one format to another to perform calculations. You can even write using the Clover scripting language. You can write little scripts which process each record as it flows through the component. You can filter, sort in a variety of ways, deduplicate, do email validation on different parts of an email address. So there's a whole range of things here, which I'm not going to go into detail. I think it's beyond the scope of this presentation. Joiners, so you can do different types of joining of data. We can see some joiners here, for instance, and these basically take data from different sources and join them together. We've got very fast ways, like the X hash join, which runs extremely quickly, but is memory-based. But if you've got vast amounts of data which don't fit in memory, which aren't going to fit in memory, then you can use different types of joins. So there are different joins for your type of data, basically. And then we've got a few other components here. So if I just talk you through this graph a little bit, this will hopefully illustrate a fairly typical usage. So here we are bringing in transactions from our system. We've got a database with transactions, and then we've got a customer file, and we're going to, first of all, sort those. There are about 1 million transactions. We'll sort those, and we're going to merge those or join those to our customer database. Then what we're doing here is we're going to the internet, in fact, and Clover can get data from anywhere, not just from a file system or a database, but a web service or FTP. In this case, we're going to an HTML file, which is at a bank via HTTP, and we're loading that in here, and we're merging that with the transaction and the customers. Then that gets passed here, and now this is like a decision, a branch. So we're basically saying, well, if there's a missing customer ID, it's going to go this way, and we're going to write this out to a missing customer file. On the other hand, if there's some error with the customer code, for instance, the currency code, I beg your pardon, then it's going to come to this output file. And then finally, if everything's okay, it's going to come down here, and we're going to aggregate those transactions, so the total number of transactions by customer, filter out anything which is less than $400,000, sort it, and write that to a file. So what I'll actually do here is to run that, and you can see some other nice features going on here. So we can see the data as it funnels along the graph. So its first thing it's doing here is it's actually going to be reading in the data from these 3 data sources. And you can see it's read in 1 million transactions now. It's passing those through as we speak. You can see the numbers changing. And we can switch on and off this capability. We can also debug this graph if we want by actually right-clicking on something and saying, well, show me the data at this point in the graph. So I can say, let's go and have a look here. And there you can see we can just look at the data. So that's a great way of debugging. If something's not working as you expect, you can just look at the data at any point. I'm going to come back to a graph later on when we actually see one running in the cluster. So let me now move back to the presentation. And I think, as David already said in the introduction, there are a variety of different applications for the Clover product in general: master data management, data warehousing, synchronization, data migration, consolidation, and data integration.